Story disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction and is intended for entertainment purposes only. The content includes dark themes, horror elements, and fictional depictions of rituals and sacrifices that are purely imaginative and not reflective of any real-life practices or beliefs. Viewer discretion is advised. This video is not suitable for younger audiences, and parental guidance is recommended. The story does not endorse or promote any harmful behavior, violence, or dangerous activities. Please note that all characters, events, and settings are entirely fictional and created for the purpose of storytelling. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events, is purely coincidental. As Biko, Amani, and Zara face their greatest trials, the stakes rise to unprecedented heights. In these final chapters, they battle a newly emerging faction determined to harness the ancient power of the void. Along the way, shocking truths about the pendulum, a mysterious prophecy, and betrayal come to light. With dark rituals threatening to unleash an ancient evil and Tanga teetering on the brink of chaos, the trio must use every ounce of their courage and knowledge to protect their city. The climactic showdown will push them to their limits, revealing who they truly are and what they are willing to sacrifice to ensure victory. Will they succeed in sealing the darkness and securing peace, or will the pendulum's power prove too great to contain? Stay with them as they navigate danger, uncover secrets, and face a final test that will determine the fate of their world. The next few days were a blur of intense preparation and sleepless nights. Biko and Amani worked tirelessly to strengthen the seal, deciphering ancient texts and using every resource they had at their disposal. The cult's relentless pursuit had left them on edge, and every shadow seemed to harbor a new threat. One evening, while Biko was out scouting for supplies, Amani received an unexpected visitor, a young woman named Zara, who claimed to be a historian with knowledge of ancient artifacts. Zara's arrival was shrouded in mystery, and Amani was unsure whether to trust her. Zara entered the bunker, her eyes scanning the room with curiosity. "I heard about the troubles you're facing," she said, her voice calm but filled with urgency. "I may be able to help." Amani raised an eyebrow. "How do you know about us?" "I've been researching the pendulum and its effects for years," Zara explained. "When I learned about the recent disturbances, I knew I had to act. The pendulum is a powerful force, and it's crucial that we understand its origins and weaknesses." Amani was skeptical but decided to listen. "All right, what do you know?" Zara pulled out an old, leather-bound book from her bag. "This contains information about the pendulum's creation and the rituals associated with it. It may hold the key to stopping it." As Zara opened the book, she revealed a series of diagrams and texts that detailed the pendulum's history and its connection to the void. According to the book, the pendulum was crafted by an ancient civilization that sought to harness the void's energy. However, their efforts had backfired, leading to a catastrophic event that nearly destroyed their world. "The pendulum was never meant to be used," Zara said, her eyes dark with concern. "It was intended to be a warning, a reminder of the dangers of tampering with forces beyond our comprehension. The cult's actions are not just misguided, they are playing with fire." Amani looked at the book, her mind racing. "If we can understand how the pendulum was originally used, we might be able to find a way to reverse its effects." Zara nodded. "Exactly. But we have to act quickly. The cult's plans are reaching a critical stage, and if they succeed, the consequences will be catastrophic." Just then, Biko returned to the bunker, his face grim. "The cult is closing in. They've been searching for us, and their efforts are becoming more desperate." Zara's face paled. "We need to move. The cult will stop at nothing to get the seal, and if they find us here, we'll be in grave danger." As they prepared to leave, Zara revealed another crucial piece of information. "There's a hidden chamber beneath the city, an ancient vault that contains additional artifacts related to the pendulum. If we can access it, we might find something that can help us. With no time to waste, Biko, Amani, and Zara made their way to the hidden chamber. The city's underbelly was a labyrinth of tunnels and forgotten passages, and they navigated it with a mix of caution and determination. The chamber they found was vast and filled with ancient relics, their meanings long forgotten. In the center of the chamber stood a massive, intricately carved door, its surface covered in glowing runes. Zara approached the door, her eyes alight with excitement. "This is it," Zara said, her voice echoing in the chamber. "We need to unlock this door and see what lies beyond." With Zara's guidance, they deciphered the runes and opened the door, revealing a hidden vault filled with ancient artifacts. Among them was a powerful relic, the golden amulet inscribed with protective symbols. This amulet, Zara explained, was used by the ancients to ward off the void's influence. It's said to be a key to closing the rifts permanently. Amani took the amulet, her eyes filled with hope. This could be the answer we've been looking for. But as they prepared to leave the chamber, a deafening roar echoed through the tunnels. The cult had found them. Their time was running out. "We have to get out of here," Biko shouted, urgency in his voice. They raced through the tunnels, the cult members hot on their heels. The city above was a chaotic battleground, and the cult's forces were everywhere. As they emerged from the tunnels, they saw a sight that made their blood run cold, dark clouds swirling ominously over the city, a sign that the void's influence was growing stronger. As they fought their way through the city, Zara revealed another shocking truth. The cult's leader has a personal connection to the pendulum. They are not just seeking power, they are trying to unlock a hidden truth about their own origins. Biko's eyes widened. "What truth?" Zara's face was grim. "The cult's leader is the last descendant of the ancient civilization that created the pendulum. They believe that by unlocking the pendulum's full power, they can resurrect their ancestors and claim dominion over the void." With this revelation, Biko and Amani understood the stakes were even higher. They had to stop the cult and close the rifts before the city and the world was consumed by darkness. As they prepared for the final confrontation, they knew they were up against an enemy unlike any they had faced before. The final battle would test their resolve and their courage, but they were ready to face whatever darkness awaited them. The final showdown was imminent. Biko, Amani, and Zara braced themselves for the confrontation with the cult. The city of Tanga was a battleground of chaos and destruction, the influence of the void visible in the swirling dark clouds and twisted shadows that haunted the streets. The cult's headquarters was an imposing fortress on the outskirts of the city, a sprawling complex shrouded in darkness and secrecy. It was here that the final ritual would take place, and Biko, Amani, and Zara knew they had to stop it at all costs. Under the cover of night, they approached the fortress, their path illuminated by the eerie glow of the pendulum's energy. The walls of the fortress were lined with symbols and runes, their dark power palpable. The entrance was heavily guarded, and the air was thick with the hum of the pendulum's dark energy. "We need to find a way in," Biko whispered, his eyes scanning the fortress's defenses. "But we can't afford to be seen." Zara examined the perimeter, her face set in determination. "There's a hidden passage on the east side. It's a risk, but it might be our only chance." They made their way to the hidden passage, navigating through shadows and avoiding patrols. The passage led them into the heart of the fortress, where they could hear the chanting of the cultists and the rhythmic pulse of the pendulum's energy. As they moved deeper into the fortress, they stumbled upon a chamber filled with dark artifacts and ritualistic tools. At its center stood the pendulum, surrounded by a circle of cult members, their faces obscured by masks. The leader, a figure clad in a cloak of shadows, stood before an ancient altar, preparing for the final ritual. "We are running out of time," Amani said, her voice filled with urgency. "We need to disrupt the ritual and stop the cult from completing their plans." Biko nodded, and they prepared to confront the cult. But as they approached, a startling realization hit them: the leader of the cult was none other than Zara's estranged brother, Tariq. Tariq! Zara gasped, her voice filled with shock and disbelief. "You're leading this madness." Tariq turned, his eyes cold and unyielding. "Zara, you should have stayed away. The power of the pendulum will reshape the world. Our ancestors will rise again, and the void will be ours to command." Zara's face was a mix of anger and sorrow. "You've lost yourself to this darkness. I can't let you continue with this." The confrontation escalated quickly. Cult members surged forward, their dark energy clashing with the light from the seal and the amulet. Biko and Amani fought bravely, their movements synchronized as they battled against the cult's forces. The chamber was a chaotic maelstrom of combat, energy, and raw power. In the midst of the chaos, Tariq performed the final incantation, and the pendulum's energy surged with a blinding light. The void's influence grew stronger, distorting reality and tearing at the fabric of their world. The chamber twisted and shifted, the very walls seeming to close in on them. Biko and Amani pushed forward, their determination unyielding. They reached the altar, where the pendulum's energy was at its peak. Amani held up the seal, its power radiating in a brilliant beam of light. With a final, desperate effort, she activated the seal, aiming to close the rifts and counter the pendulum's dark energy. The light from the seal clashed with the pendulum's energy, creating a spectacular explosion of color and sound. The rifts in reality began to close, and the void's influence was pushed back. Tariq and the cult members were engulfed in the tumultuous energy, their dark ambitions thwarted by the combined power of the seal and the amulet. In the aftermath of the battle, the fortress lay in ruins, the pendulum's energy dissipating into the ether. The city of Tanga slowly began to recover, the dark clouds receding and the shadows retreating. Biko, Amani, and Zara stood amidst the wreckage, their faces weary but triumphant. The threat of the void had been averted, and the city was safe, for now. But as they looked out over the horizon, they knew that the struggle was far from over. The forces of darkness were ever present, and the pendulum's influence would continue to linger. Their journey had come to a close, but the battle between light and dark was an ongoing fight. As Tanga began to rebuild from the devastation, Biko, Amani, and Zara found themselves reflecting on the events that had transpired. The city was slowly recovering, but the scars of the recent conflict were still visible. They had succeeded in their mission, but the cost of their victory weighed heavily on them. In the quiet aftermath, Biko and Amani met with Zara to discuss the final steps of their journey. Zara had recovered some documents from the cult's fortress, and they were eager to uncover the hidden truths behind the pendulum and the void. Zara spread the documents across a table in the bunker, her expression contemplative. These records reveal more about the pendulum's origins and the cult's true intentions. It's clear that Tariq wasn't just trying to control the void, he was seeking to fulfill a prophecy. Amani looked at the documents with curiosity. A prophecy? What does it say? Zara pointed to a passage in the records. It speaks of an ancient civilization that created the pendulum as part of a ritual to merge their world with the void. They believed that by doing so, they could gain ultimate power and knowledge. But the ritual was incomplete, and the pendulum was left as a warning. Biko frowned. So the cult's goal was to complete the ritual and achieve something the ancients couldn't. Yes, Zara confirmed. But the prophecy also warns of the consequences. The void is a force of pure chaos, then merging it with our reality would have catastrophic results. Tariq's actions were driven by a misguided desire for power, but he failed to understand the true nature of the void. Amani's expression was one of deep concern. If the cult had succeeded, it would have led to the destruction of everything we know. Zara nodded. That's why it was so crucial to stop them. But the danger isn't over. The pendulum's influence still lingers, and we need to ensure that its power is neutralized permanently. As they discussed their next steps, a sense of foreboding settled over them. The city was recovering, but the darkness that had threatened it was far from gone. The forces of the void were still out there, and the pendulum's influence could resurface at any time. In the days that followed, Biko, Amani, and Zara worked to secure the remaining artifacts and ensure that the pendulum's power was contained. They knew that their victory was just one battle in a larger war, and they were determined to be prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. Their journey had changed them, and they were united by a shared purpose, to protect their world from the darkness that sought to consume it. The battle between light and dark was a never-ending struggle, and they were ready to face whatever came next. Tanga was beginning to recover, but the air was thick with unease. The battle had left deep scars, not just on the city but on its people. Biko, Amani, and Zara were hailed as heroes, but their victory came at a cost. They had lost friends, faced immense danger, and uncovered a darkness they had barely begun to understand. One evening, as they regrouped in their temporary safe house, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was an elderly woman, cloaked in tattered robes. Her eyes were filled with a haunting sadness, and her presence seemed to cast an ominous shadow over the room. "I know why you're here," Zara said, her voice steady despite the chill that had settled in her heart. The woman nodded solemnly. "I've come to warn you. The pendulum's influence has not been fully eradicated. The cult's leader may be gone, but there are others who seek its power." "What do you mean?" Biko asked, his voice tinged with concern. "The relic you retrieved," the woman explained, "is not just a key, it's a beacon. It calls out to those who have been corrupted by the void. There are dark forces gathering, and they're seeking to harness the pendulum's power for their own ends." Amani's face went pale. "If they succeed, it could mean the end of everything we've fought for." The woman's gaze was intense. "You must seek out the remaining artifacts. Only by uniting them can you ensure the pendulum's power is truly contained." As the woman left, her warning hung heavy in the air. Biko, Amani, and Zara knew they had little time. They set out on a new quest, following the clues that would lead them to the remaining artifacts. Their journey took them to a remote village on the outskirts of Tanga, where they learned of a hidden chamber beneath an ancient temple. The chamber was said to hold one of the missing artifacts, a mystical orb that could amplify the pendulum's power. Entering the temple was no easy task. The path was fraught with traps and illusions designed to deter intruders. They navigated through a maze of shifting walls and deceptive shadows, their every step bringing them closer to their goal. As they reached the chamber, they discovered a shocking sight: the chamber was already occupied. A group of shadowy figures, clad in dark robes, were performing a ritual around the orb. The air was charged with dark energy, and the orb's glow pulsed ominously. "We are too late," Zara whispered, her voice filled with dread. The cultists turned, their faces obscured by masks. The leader of the group, a tall figure with piercing eyes, stepped forward. "Welcome," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "You've come to witness the awakening of a new era." Before they could react, the ritual reached a critical point. The orb's energy surged, creating a powerful shockwave that threw Biko, Amani, and Zara to the ground. The chamber's walls began to collapse, and the air was filled with the sound of shattering stone and swirling darkness. In the chaos, the orb's energy went haywire, creating rifts that tore through reality. The chamber was a tumultuous whirlwind of light and darkness, and the very fabric of the world seemed to be unraveling. Biko fought to his feet, his eyes filled with determination. "We have to stop them before it's too late." With a rallying cry, they charged forward, battling the cultists and trying to seize the orb. The energy from the orb was overwhelming, distorting their senses and creating nightmarish visions. Shadows twisted and writhed, and the ground beneath them seemed to shift and twist. In a desperate move, Amani managed to grab the orb, its power coursing through her. She struggled to contain its energy, her body trembling under the strain. Biko and Zara fought off the remaining cultists, their efforts focused on protecting Amani and neutralizing the threat. With a final, wrenching effort, Amani activated the amulet's protective symbols, creating a barrier that contained the orb's energy. The rifts began to close, and the chamber's destruction slowed. The remaining cultists fled, their plans thwarted. As the dust settled and the chamber's collapse ceased, Biko, Amani, and Zara surveyed the damage. They had secured another artifact, but the danger was far from over. The dark forces that sought the pendulum's power were still out there, and their journey was far from complete. The discovery of the orb had brought them closer to their goal, but it had also revealed a new and terrifying dimension to their quest. The darkness that had been unleashed was far more potent than they had anticipated, and the stakes had never been higher. Tanga was in a state of constant vigilance. The shadows of the city seemed to grow darker, and the people were uneasy. The remnants of the cult were regrouping, and whispers of a coming storm filled the air. Biko, Amani, and Zara knew they had to act quickly to prevent a catastrophe. Their next lead took them to the heart of the city's old district, a place shrouded in mystery and long-forgotten legends. The district was home to a series of underground tunnels that were rumored to hold another artifact, an ancient book said to contain the secrets of the pendulum's power. Navigating the old district was no easy task. The streets were narrow and winding, and the buildings were in a state of decay. As they delved deeper into the tunnels, they encountered a series of elaborate traps and puzzles, each more intricate than the last. The tunnels were filled with strange symbols and warnings, their purpose lost to time. They had to decipher the clues and avoid the deadly traps that had been set to protect the artifact. The tension was palpable, and each step they took was fraught with danger. Finally, they reached a hidden chamber, its walls covered in ancient inscriptions. At the center of the room was a pedestal, on which rested the book they sought. The book was bound in dark leather and adorned with strange symbols. As they approached the book, a chilling realization struck them. The chamber was a trap, and they had walked straight into the cult's hands. The walls began to close in, and the room was filled with the sound of grinding stone. "Get the book and get out," Zara shouted, her voice filled with urgency. Biko grabbed the book and tucked it under his arm. The chamber's walls continued to close in, and the air was thick with the scent of ancient dust and stale air. They raced through the tunnels, the ground shaking beneath them. As they emerged from the tunnels, they saw a sight that made their hearts sink. The sky above Tanga was a roiling mass of dark clouds, and a massive storm was brewing. The storm's energy was palpable, and the very air seemed to crackle with dark power. "We've stirred something," Amani said, her voice trembling. "The storm is a manifestation of the pendulum's influence." The storm raged overhead, and the city was plunged into darkness. Lightning crackled, and the winds howled with a malevolent force. The storm seemed to be a harbinger of the chaos to come. As Biko, Amani, and Zara prepared to confront the rising storm, they knew that the final battle was approaching. The cult's plans were nearing fruition, and the city of Tanga was on the brink of destruction. Their quest to contain the pendulum's power had become a race against time, and the storm was just the beginning of the darkness that awaited them. The storm over Tanga continued to rage, its fury a testament to the dark forces at play. Biko, Amani, and Zara knew that they had to act quickly to prevent the city from being consumed by the void's influence. The final artifact, the ancient book, held the key to unraveling the remaining mysteries of the pendulum and its power. As they gathered in their safe house, Zara began to decipher the book's cryptic passages. The book revealed ancient rituals and dark secrets, shedding light on the pendulum's true purpose and the dangers it posed. The more they read, the clearer it became that the pendulum was not just a relic of power, it was a conduit for the void's chaotic energy. "The pendulum is a gateway," Zara explained, her voice heavy with concern. "It can channel the void's power into our world, and the cult's ultimate goal is to open that gateway fully." Amani looked at the book with a mixture of fear and determination. If the gateway opens, the void will overwhelm everything. We have to stop them. Zara nodded. There's a ritual described here that could seal the gateway permanently, but it requires a powerful sacrifice. We need to find a way to perform the ritual without falling into the cult's trap. Their search for the final piece of the puzzle led them to an old, abandoned building in the city's outskirts. The building was said to be a place of great significance, and it was here that the cult planned to perform their final ritual. As they entered the building, they found themselves in a vast, dimly lit chamber. The walls were adorned with ancient symbols, and the air was thick with the scent of incense and old books. At the center of the room was an altar, surrounded by dark energy. The cult was already there, preparing for their final ritual. The leader, Tarek's successor, stood at the altar, chanting incantations and drawing symbols in the air. The cult members were arrayed around the altar, their faces obscured by masks. Biko, Amani, and Zara knew they had to act swiftly. They had to disrupt the ritual and prevent the cult from opening the gateway. With a book in hand, they carefully approached the altar, their every move a calculated risk. As the cultists began the final incantations, a surge of energy erupted from the altar. The chamber was filled with blinding light, and the very fabric of reality seemed to warp and twist. The gateway was opening, and the void's influence was pouring into the world. In a desperate move, Biko used the book's instructions to perform the counter-ritual. The energy from the book clashed with the void's power, creating a fierce struggle between light and darkness. Zara and Amani fought off the cultists, their efforts focused on protecting Biko and the ritual. The chamber's walls began to crack and collapse, and the ground shook violently. The energy from the gateway surged, threatening to consume everything. With a final, desperate effort, Biko completed the counter-ritual, sealing the gateway and dissipating the void's influence. The chamber fell silent, the storm outside gradually subsiding. The cultists had been defeated, and the gateway had been sealed. Tanga was safe, but the scars of the battle would remain. Biko, Amani, and Zara had saved the city, but their journey had come at a great cost. As they emerged from the building, the sky was clear once more, and the city's lights shone brightly. The storm had passed, and Tanga was beginning to heal. Their quest had been written, but the story was far from over. The city of Tanga was slowly recovering from the chaos that had engulfed it. The storm had left its mark, but the people were resilient. Biko, Amani, and Zara had become symbols of hope and courage, their actions celebrated throughout the city. But the victory was bittersweet. The journey had changed them, and the scars of their battles were more than just physical. They had faced darkness that few could comprehend, and the experience had left them forever altered. As they walked through the city, they found themselves reflecting on their journey. The final artifact, the ancient book, had been safely stored, its dark secrets contained. They had succeeded in their mission, but the experience had left them with a deeper understanding of the forces they had confronted. Tanga was beginning to rebuild, and the people were starting to move on. The threat of the cult had been vanquished, but the lessons learned would remain. The pendulum's power had been contained, and the city was on the path to recovery. Biko, Amani, and Zara knew that their journey was far from over. They had faced darkness, but they had also discovered a strength within themselves that they hadn't known existed. Their bond had grown stronger, and their resolve was unshakable. As they stood together, looking out over the city they had saved, they knew that their story was far from finished. The shadows of the past would always linger, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The dawn of a new era had begun, and Tanga was ready to embrace the future. Biko, Amani, and Zara had become legends, their names forever etched in the city's history. Their journey had been one of darkness and light, and their legacy would inspire future generations. In the aftermath of their victory, Tanga was slowly returning to normal. The people were rebuilding, and the city was beginning to heal. But beneath the surface, a new threat was emerging, one that would challenge everything Biko, Amani, and Zara had fought for. The ancient book, which they had believed to be safely stored, had mysteriously disappeared from its secure location. The disappearance was discovered during a routine check, and the implications were immediate and alarming. Amani was the first to notice the signs. Strange symbols began appearing around the city, and the air was filled with an unsettling energy. It was clear that someone was attempting to harness the book's power, and the signs pointed to a new, more dangerous faction. Biko, Amani, and Zara immediately set out to investigate. Their search led them to an underground network of tunnels that had been abandoned for years. The tunnels were dark and winding, filled with eerie echoes and unsettling sounds. As they ventured deeper into the tunnels, they discovered a hidden chamber, filled with ancient artifacts and dark symbols. The chamber was occupied by a new group of cultists, who were performing a ritual to unlock the book's power. The new faction was more organized and dangerous than the previous cult. Their leader, a figure shrouded in darkness, was attempting to harness the book's energy to summon an even greater force. The stakes were higher than ever, and the danger was palpable. Biko, Amani, and Zara knew they had to act quickly. They disrupted the ritual, but the new faction's leader managed to escape with a piece of the book. The chase through the tunnels was intense, filled with narrow escapes and close encounters. The leader's escape led them to a hidden lair, where they discovered a shocking revelation: the new faction was not just seeking power, they were planning to awaken a dormant evil force that had been sealed away for centuries. As they confronted the faction's leader, they realized the true scale of the threat. The book's power could be used to unleash an ancient evil that could destroy everything they had fought to protect. The final battle was shaping up to be the most intense yet, and the stakes were higher than ever. The final confrontation was approaching, and the tension was palpable. Biko, Amani, and Zara knew that they had to prevent the new faction from awakening the ancient evil. The city of Tanga was at risk, and the fate of everything they had fought for hung in the balance. Their search led them to an ancient ruin on the outskirts of the city, a place of great historical and spiritual significance. The ruin was the site of the faction's final ritual, and the air was thick with dark energy. As they approached the ruin, they saw the new faction preparing for the ritual. The leader, clad in dark robes, was chanting incantations and drawing symbols in the air. The energy from the ritual was intense, and the ground beneath them began to tremble. Biko, Amani, and Zara knew they had to act swiftly. They fought their way through the cultists, their every move filled with urgency and determination. The ancient evil was awakening, and the forces of darkness were closing in. The ritual reached its climax, and the ground under the strain of the dark energy, the ground revealing a hidden chamber beneath the ruin. The chamber was filled with ancient artifacts and symbols, and at its center was a dark force that seemed to pulse with malevolent power. Biko, Amani, and Zara fought desperately to stop the ritual, their every action a testament to their bravery and resolve. The battle was fierce, and the stakes were higher than ever. The ground was further, and the chamber's walls began to collapse. With a final, desperate effort, they managed to disrupt the ritual and contain the dark force. The ancient evil was sealed away once more, and the ruin began to crumble. The battle was over, and the city of Tanga was safe once again. The ancient evil had been contained, and the new faction had been defeated. Biko, Amani, and Zara had faced unimaginable darkness and emerged victorious. As they stood together, looking out over the city they had saved, they knew that their journey was far from finished. The challenges they had faced had tested their courage and strength, but they had come through stronger and more determined than ever. The city was beginning to rebuild, and the people were starting to move on. The scars of the battle would remain, but the spirit of Tanga was unbroken. Biko, Amani, and Zara had become legends, their names forever etched in the city's history. Their journey had been one of darkness and light, and their legacy would inspire future generations. The pendulum's power had been contained, and the forces of darkness had been vanquished. Tanga was on the path to recovery, and the dawn of a new era had begun. As they prepared to leave the city, they knew that their story was far from over. The shadows of the past would always linger, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their bond had grown stronger, and their resolve was unshakable. The final chapter of their quest had been written, but the story was far from finished. The journey had changed them, and they were ready to embrace whatever the future held. The dawn of a new era had begun, and Tanga was ready to embrace the future.